There comes a time in every life when we hold on too tightly to people, to situations, to beliefs, to the image of who we once thought we should be. We cling because it feels safe. We clutch because we fear the unknown. But there is a mysterious law woven into the fabric of existence. When you finally decide to let go, the universe does not punish you. It responds, and it responds in ways that are often subtle, yet unmistakably transformative. Letting go is not about giving up. It is not about defeat. It is about surrendering what no longer serves you, so that what is meant for you can finally find its way in. Today, I want to share with you 5 ways the universe responds when you decide to let go. Life has an uncanny way of mirroring the state of our inner being. When we clutch too tightly to what no longer serves us, we unconsciously shut the door on what wishes to come alive within us. Think for a moment of a room, dark, suffocating, its corners overflowing with heavy furniture from another era. The walls seem closer, the air stale, the space cramped. Nothing new can enter this room, no light, no breath of fresh air, no possibility of rearrangement. It is a shrine to the past, preserved in fear of the unknown, and yet as long as the room remains cluttered, it can never reveal its true capacity for beauty, comfort, or harmony. The psyche functions in the same way. It carries within it both the known and the potential, both the lived and the unlived. But when we crowd our inner lives with attachments to people, beliefs, and roles that no longer reflect who we are becoming, we create a prison for ourselves. We hold on because there is comfort in familiarity. Even suffering can become familiar, and so we cling to it rather than face the anxiety of emptiness. Yet the very act of letting go, terrifying though it may be, is the key that unlocks the door to transformation. I once knew a woman who embodied this struggle. For nearly a decade she remained in a job that drained her spirit. Each morning she rose with dread. Each evening she returned home feeling hollowed out, her eyes dimmed by resignation. She stayed because she believed security was more important than fulfillment, because the thought of stepping into uncertainty made her tremble. For years she bargained with herself. Perhaps next year will be different. Perhaps the work will change. Perhaps I will learn to love it. But the truth was plain. This role was no longer aligned with the quiet truth within her. One day, after much silent suffering, she made the courageous decision to resign. She had no plan, no safety net, only the raw trust that clinging to misery was no longer an option. In the first week after her resignation, she felt lost, disoriented, adrift in emptiness. But then something remarkable occurred. Invitations began to appear, unexpected conversations, opportunities she had never imagined. A phone call from an old acquaintance that opened a door to a field she had secretly longed for. Within 3 weeks, she found herself working in an environment that not only valued her gifts but awakened her passion. The path had always been there, waiting, yet it could not be revealed until she had cleared the space. This story is not unusual. Life moves according to rhythms that cannot be seen but can be felt. When you release what burdens you, you create a vacuum, and a vacuum in nature is never left unfilled. The universe rushes to pour into that empty space the possibilities that match the truth of your being. But the first step is yours. The first step is the letting go. The paradox is that holding on feels safe, while in truth it is what keeps us bound. We fear the void, the silence that follows release, the empty hands that are left when we finally loosen our grip. But that very emptiness is sacred. It is the fertile ground of transformation. Think of a tree in autumn. The leaves fall not because the tree has failed, but because it must prepare for renewal. If the tree clung to its dead leaves, spring could never come. The cycle of life itself demands release. Why then do we imagine that we are exceptions to this law? Human beings, unlike trees, are endowed with the peculiar burden of memory and expectation. We weave stories about who we must be and what we must cling to, and these stories become walls around us. But the universe is patient. It waits for us to drop these stories, to unshackle ourselves from old burdens, and when we do, the room of our lives begins to breathe again. Letting go does not mean erasing the past. The past remains a part of us, carved into the foundation of our being. But there is a difference between honoring what has been and clinging to what should no longer remain. To honor the past is to give thanks, to integrate the lessons, to carry the wisdom forward. To cling, however, is to deny the flow of life, to resist the river that seeks to carry us forward. Every ending is the prelude to a beginning. The woman who left her job did not lose her security. She discovered a greater security in trusting her own capacity to navigate the unknown. Each of us has a similar moment waiting, a point where we must decide whether we will keep suffocating in a room too small for our soul or risk stepping into the vastness of possibility. There is, too, a deeper mystery here. When you let go, you do not simply create space for external opportunities. You create space within your own psyche. Old fears loosen their grip. The energy once consumed by resistance is freed for creativity, for curiosity, for growth. In this way, letting go is not merely about external circumstances. It is an inner act of liberation. It is saying to yourself, I am no longer defined by this weight. I choose to live. So many of us live years, even decades, trapped in circumstances we have outgrown. We fear loneliness, so we cling to relationships that diminish us. We fear failure, so we cling to roles that suffocate our talents. We fear uncertainty, so we cling to identities that no longer mirror our truth. But what we fail to see is that the act of holding on is itself the source of our suffering. It is only when the hands release that they can open to receive. Only when the room is cleared that the light can enter. Only when the leaves fall that spring can come. This is the law of life, and it is as inexorable as the turning of the seasons. The universe does not abandon you when you let go. On the contrary, it rushes to meet you. It whispers in synchronicities. It opens doors you could not have imagined. It sends you the people and experiences that resonate with who you are becoming. The space you create is not a void of despair, but a vessel waiting to be filled with new life. So, the question is not whether the universe will respond. It always does. The question is whether you will have the courage to clear the space, to trust the emptiness, and to wait long enough to see what new life emerges. When you loosen your grip on what no longer belongs to you, life begins to reveal itself in ways that often feel almost mystical. It is as if the very fabric of existence conspires to meet you, to assure you that you are not lost, that there is meaning woven into the seemingly random patterns of your days. These are not accidents. They are not mere coincidences. They are synchronicities, moments when inner experience and outer reality suddenly meet with uncanny precision. They are the whispers of the universe, the secret language of life itself, guiding you toward the path that aligns with your deepest truth. What is striking about synchronicity is that it rarely announces itself with thunder or dramatic displays. It moves quietly, softly, as if testing whether you are truly paying attention. It appears in the book that falls open to a page that seems to speak directly to your hidden struggle. It shows up in the words of a stranger who unknowingly voices the very answer you were searching for. It is present in the song on the radio whose lyrics mirror your thoughts so precisely that you feel exposed. These are not tricks of chance. They are invitations, subtle markers along the way, assuring you that your release has not cast you into emptiness, but rather into the flow of something larger. Consider the moment when someone finally lets go of a relationship that has been holding their heart hostage. For months, perhaps years, they have tried to force what was no longer alive, fearing the silence that would follow if they released it. But once the decision is made, once they stop clinging, the world begins to shift. Perhaps they are walking through a bookstore and a title catches their eye, a title that seems to speak directly to the pain they have just endured. Or perhaps they meet a stranger at a cafe who shares a story of heartbreak and renewal that mirrors their own journey. These occurrences feel almost eerie, as if the world itself is alive and aware of the transformation they have just embraced. And in a sense, it is. From the perspective of psychology, one might say that our perception sharpens when we release attachments. There is a mechanism in the brain, the reticular activating system, that filters the countless stimuli around us. When you are consumed by fear or attachment, this system blinds you to possibilities, narrowing your vision to the object of your clinging. But when you let go, your perception expands. Suddenly, patterns emerge. Connections that were always there rise into view. The universe, which had seemed silent, begins to speak. The truth is, it had always been speaking. You were simply too entangled in your grasping to hear it. Yet, while science can explain the mechanics, it cannot capture the full mystery, for synchronicity is not simply about noticing patterns, it is about meaning. A coincidence becomes synchronistic not because it happens, but because it strikes your heart with a sense of significance, as if it were intended for you. It is the quality of meaning, not the event itself, that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. This is why synchronicities appear most vividly when you are in transition, when you have let go of something old and are awaiting what is new. It is in these thresholds that you are most receptive to meaning, most open to the hidden order behind appearances. I recall a man who once shared with me his experience after letting go of a career that had defined him for 20 years. He had reached a point of exhaustion, no longer able to deny that his work had become a prison. The day after he resigned, uncertain of what the future held, he stepped into a small cafe he had never visited before. As he sat down, his eyes fell upon a newspaper left on the table. On the front page was an article about a field he had been quietly drawn to for years, but had never dared to explore. The timing was so precise, the resonance so uncanny, that he could not dismiss it as mere chance. It was as if life had placed that paper before him, affirming his decision, nudging him toward the path that had been waiting all along. Such moments ignite a sense of wonder. They awaken us to the possibility that life is not random chaos, but a dialogue between the soul and the world. When you let go, you open yourself to this dialogue. You begin to realize that you are not navigating life alone. There is a deeper intelligence at play, one that arranges circumstances with a delicacy too subtle for calculation. And though you cannot command it, you can invite it by surrendering your grip on what no longer serves you. What is remarkable about synchronicities is that they often come when you most need reassurance. In the vulnerable space that follows release, when fear and doubt creep in, a synchronistic event arrives like a hand on your shoulder, reminding you that you are on the right path. It may not give you the full map, but it provides a signpost, a signal that says, "Keep going, trust this direction." And though the ego may still long for certainty, the soul recognizes the value of these subtle affirmations. It is important to remember, however, that synchronicity is not a promise of ease. Letting go will not erase all struggle, nor will signs always lead directly to instant success. What they offer is alignment. They reveal that the path you are walking resonates with your inner truth, even if it is still difficult. They remind you that the universe does not respond with indifference to your courage, but with companionship. There is a hidden humility required in recognizing synchronicities. You must be willing to slow down, to notice, to believe that meaning is possible even in the smallest of moments. Modern life trains us to dismiss such experiences as coincidence, to reduce them to probability. But when you live only in numbers, you starve yourself of meaning. To see synchronicity is to see with the eyes of the soul, to allow wonder back into your perception of reality. And wonder, once awakened, transforms even the most ordinary of days. So when you release the weight you have been carrying, pay attention. The signs will come. They may not shout, but they will whisper. They may not arrive on your timetable, but they will arrive precisely when you need them. Life itself will become your teacher, and each synchronistic moment will be a reminder that you are part of a larger story, woven with threads you cannot always see, but can always feel. And the more you trust this mystery, the more clearly it reveals itself. When we hold on too tightly to what has already passed, we keep ourselves bound to a wound that could otherwise close. As long as we cling, we carry the weight of it, and that weight seeps into everything we touch. It lingers in our thoughts, it colors our emotions, it shapes the way we see the world. Pain that could have moved through us becomes stagnant. Grief that could have softened into wisdom becomes hardened into bitterness. The paradox is that in our refusal to let go, we believe we are protecting ourselves from further pain, when in truth we are prolonging the suffering indefinitely. The human soul, much like the body, carries an innate capacity for healing. Think of the body when it is wounded. The skin splits open, the blood rises to the surface, there is rawness, vulnerability. If left alone, the body immediately sets into motion an extraordinary process of repair. Cells rush to rebuild, tissues knit themselves back together, the wound gradually closes. But what happens if we keep picking at it? If we refuse to stop scratching, reopening it again and again, it never heals. The process is disrupted, not because the body lacks the wisdom, but because we interfere. The soul functions in precisely the same way. It knows how to heal. It carries within it an ancient intelligence that tends to our hurts. But when we refuse to let go, when we replay the same memory, cling to the same resentment, hold tight to what should have been, we pick at the wound, preventing the very healing we long for. I remember a man who carried this truth within his own story. He had lost someone he loved with all his heart, and with the loss came a darkness he could not shake. In the beginning, his grief was pure and natural, a river of sorrow that flowed as grief is meant to flow. But over time, he transformed that grief into something harder. He clung to it as if it were the last link to the one he had lost. He replayed the circumstances endlessly in his mind, rehearsing what he could have done differently, how fate had betrayed him, how life had stolen something irreplaceable. And so the years passed, not with healing, but with bitterness. His heart grew heavy, his spirit contracted. He believed that holding on to his grief was a way of honoring the love he had lost. But in reality, it was chaining him to a past that no longer existed. Then came the day when he could no longer carry it. After years of silence, years of trying to master his pain through sheer control, he finally broke. He chose to release, not the memory of the one he loved, not the beauty of what they had shared, but the bitterness, the refusal to let life move forward. And when he allowed himself to forgive the circumstances, to forgive himself, to forgive life itself for its cruelty, he wept with a depth that shook his body. For hours he released tears he had been holding back, and when at last the sobs subsided, he described it as though a stone had been lifted from his chest. The weight had not been the loss itself. The weight had been the refusal to let go. The healing had been waiting all along, patiently, quietly, blocked only by his insistence on carrying the wound. This story mirrors a truth that many of us live without realizing. Healing is not something we must create. It is something we must allow. The psyche, like the body, is not passive. It has currents that move toward wholeness if only we stop resisting. The pain does not disappear as though it never existed, just as a scar remains even after the skin closes. But scars are not meant to be chains. They are reminders of what we have endured, markers of survival, testimonies to the soul's capacity to endure and to grow. What prevents this process more than anything is our attachment to the story we tell about our pain. We say to ourselves, if I let go, I will dishonor what I lost. Or if I let go, it will mean the injustice was acceptable. Or if I let go, I will lose the last piece of them. And so we cling, not realizing that in clinging, we do not preserve love or truth, we preserve suffering. Letting go is not forgetting. It is not dismissing what happened. It is not erasing the memory. It is choosing to release the grip that keeps the pain alive so that healing can take its natural course. Think again of the wound. To let it close does not mean the injury never happened. It does not mean the body was never cut. It means the body has chosen life over perpetual bleeding. The soul, too, chooses life when we allow it to heal. Healing through letting go often comes with an unexpected sense of lightness. People who have carried grief or resentment for years often describe the release as though a physical weight has been removed. Their posture changes, their face softens, their voice carries new freedom. This is not metaphorical. The body truly holds the burden of what the mind refuses to release. Science has shown how unresolved emotional pain manifests as stress, illness, fatigue. But when forgiveness enters, when surrender takes place, the body itself responds. Blood pressure lowers, tension eases, energy returns. To let go is not only an act of the soul, it is medicine for the body. And yet letting go requires courage. We fear that if we release, we will collapse. We fear that if we stop holding the wound, we will lose a part of ourselves. But the truth is the opposite. When you let go, you do not lose yourself. You return to yourself. You reconnect with the part of you that is larger than the wound, the part of you that is capable of joy, love, and hope even after sorrow. There is a rhythm to life that we cannot escape. Every loss, every heartbreak, every disappointment carries within it both pain and the seed of renewal. But the seed cannot grow while we keep our fist clenched around the husk of what has already died. The act of letting go cracks the fist open, and in that opening, healing begins to flow like water finally released from a dam. It rushes into the dry places, it softens what has become rigid, it awakens what has been asleep. And so the invitation is simple yet profound. Loosen your grip. Trust that you do not need to keep the wound open for the love to remain, for the lesson to endure, for the truth to be honored. Trust that the soul knows how to heal if only you will step aside. Let the tears come if they must. Let the silence arrive if it will. Let the emptiness reveal itself as space rather than loss. For in that space, in that surrender, life itself returns. The river of healing begins to flow, not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. Strength is a strange thing. We often imagine it as force, as control, as the ability to hold on longer than others. We believe that strength lies in endurance, in gritted teeth, in clenched fists that refuse to let go. And for a time it feels true. To cling gives the illusion of mastery, as though by sheer determination we can bend life to our will. Yet what we fail to see is that clinging does not give us strength. It drains it. It bleeds us slowly, leaving us exhausted, anxious, brittle, and afraid. True strength, the kind that transforms the soul, emerges not when we grip harder, but when we release. There is an image that captures this paradox well. Someone hanging from a rope suspended in the air, convinced that to release their grip would mean certain death. Their palms are blistered, their arms ache, their body trembles under the weight of fear. They imagine the fall will shatter them, and so they cling harder even as the pain intensifies. Yet when they finally let go, they discover the ground was only a few feet beneath them. They could have stood strong all along. The power they thought resided in their grip was, in fact, hidden in their capacity to release. Life is full of such ropes, full of such illusions. How often do we cling to what no longer serves us because we fear collapse, when in truth the ground has been beneath us all along? Letting go is terrifying because it feels like surrendering control. But here lies the deeper truth. We never had the control we believed we had. To release is to see reality clearly, to accept that we cannot dictate every outcome, and in that acceptance, a new power awakens. This power is not the fragile energy of constant striving, but the enduring strength of resilience. It is the recognition that we can endure disappointment, that we can survive endings, that we can rebuild after loss. When we let go, we uncover not our fragility, but our capacity to rise. Psychology has shown us what wisdom traditions have always known. Acceptance restores strength. Research demonstrates that those who practice letting go, who truly surrender what cannot be changed, live with less stress, greater resilience, and stronger mental health than those who cling. To accept is not to resign. It is not to declare defeat. It is to stop wasting energy on battles already lost and instead gather that energy for the life that is still unfolding. Think of the exhaustion that comes from rehearsing old arguments in your mind, replaying past regrets, or obsessing over what cannot be undone. Every thought is a tightening of the rope, every memory a fresh wound to the palms. But the moment you release, energy returns. The mind clears, the heart breathes, the body begins to heal. Strength flows back not because the circumstances have changed, but because you have. There is another paradox here. To let go is to discover that vulnerability is not weakness, but the root of true strength. When we cling, we armor ourselves, hiding behind control. But when we release, we open ourselves to life as it is, and in that openness we encounter an inner fortitude that cannot be shaken. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move through fear into freedom. I recall the story of a woman who carried a deep fear of failure. For years she held tightly to a career path that left her unfulfilled, believing that stepping away would expose her as weak, as incapable. She endured silently, her days marked by anxiety and exhaustion. Yet when the pain of staying became greater than the fear of leaving, she let go. At first, she felt naked, exposed, uncertain of her worth. But as the weeks unfolded, something remarkable happened. She realized she could survive without the old identity. She discovered capacities within herself she had never known: courage, creativity, resourcefulness. The ground had been beneath her all along, waiting for her to trust it. Her strength had not been in the clinging, but in the courage to release. The universe seems to conspire with those who take such steps. When you release, life meets you not with collapse, but with revelation. It shows you that you are not as fragile as you feared, that within you lies a reservoir of power long hidden beneath layers of fear and control. It is as if the universe says, Now that you have stopped clinging to illusions, I will show you what you are truly made of. And what you discover is not weakness but resilience, not despair but renewal. Many people mistake control for safety, but in truth, it is the willingness to let go that creates true security. Control depends on circumstances, and circumstances shift like sand. But the strength that emerges when you release is rooted not in the world outside, but in the soul within. It is a strength that cannot be taken by loss, rejection, or failure, because it arises from the recognition that you can endure, adapt, and grow. Think of how a river gains its power. If it tried to control every stone and obstacle in its path, it would cease to flow. But the river's strength comes from its willingness to move, to bend, to release its grip on form while never losing its essence. It is precisely because it yields that it carves canyons and reshapes landscapes. So it is with us. When we let go, we do not become weaker. We become like the river, carrying within us a strength that flows, adapts, and transforms. To cling is to shrink into fear, to waste energy fighting what cannot be changed. To let go is to return to life itself, to reclaim the energy once drained by resistance. It is to stand upon the ground we did not believe was there, to breathe again, to realize that we are capable of carrying far more than we imagined. Strength emerges in those moments when we allow life to reveal us to ourselves, when we finally stop grasping and discover that we were never meant to hang suspended in fear. And so, the act of release is not an act of weakness, but the birth of strength. It is the moment the rope slips from our hands and we realize we are not falling, we are standing. It is the awakening of the truth that has been hidden all along, that we are far more resilient, far more courageous, far more capable than the frightened part of us ever believed. The universe does not abandon us in those moments. It answers our surrender by unveiling the strength we thought we lacked, a strength that has been waiting, silent but steady, deep within our being. When you begin to release what no longer belongs to you, something remarkable takes place. The right people and opportunities begin to emerge, often in ways so subtle and natural that at first you may not even realize the transformation is happening. The truth is that life, at its core, is a living flow. It carries us, just as a river carries fallen leaves, not arbitrarily, but toward places of belonging, toward experiences that match our deepest essence. Yet we, in fear or habit, often cling to the rocks along the way, relationships that no longer serve us, careers that smother our spirit, familiar patterns that feel safe but suffocate growth. In holding on, we resist the current, mistaking resistance for strength, when in fact it is surrender that reveals the true alignment of our lives. Imagine for a moment someone who remains in a relationship long past its natural season, fearing loneliness more than desiring truth. They rationalize, they compromise, they diminish parts of themselves just to keep the bond intact. But once they find the courage to let go, an unexpected clarity unfolds. New friendships arrive, perhaps through chance encounters, conversations at a cafe, or introductions at work. These new presences feel lighter, more genuine, and they affirm the very parts of the soul that had been silenced. This is not coincidence. It is life responding to the clearing of space. The removal of the old creates the opening through which the new may step in. Think, too, of the countless stories of those who leave jobs that slowly erode their spirit. A man works behind a desk for years, convincing himself that stability is more important than joy. Yet every morning he wakes with a heaviness in his chest, knowing this path was not the one he dreamed of. The day comes when he resigns, uncertain, perhaps even terrified, and yet within weeks a door opens, an opportunity in a field that excites him or a collaboration with someone who recognizes his true talents. How many times have we heard such stories, where risk births alignment, where surrender invites possibility? This is the pattern of the universe. It does not remove without reason. This is not to say that letting go is easy. There is pain in the release, for we are creatures of attachment. We weave our identities through the bonds we hold, our careers, our relationships, our familiar roles. Letting go often feels like a death, small but profound. Yet in every death there is a rebirth. The new cannot arrive until the old has been buried. It is not destruction but transformation. The very act of unclenching, of loosening our grip, is what makes room for the people and opportunities that resonate with our deeper nature. Real life continually affirms this truth. Consider the artist who hides her talent for years because her family insists on a practical profession. She obeys until one day the weight of silence becomes unbearable. She decides to abandon that false identity and begins painting again, timidly at first, with no certainty of success. Not long after, she meets others who share her passion, an art collective, a mentor, a community that had been invisible to her while she clung to a false self. These people were always there, but she could not perceive them until she stepped into her authenticity. When she let go, her life aligned with what had always been waiting for her. The psyche operates in much the same way as the world around us. When you cling to the outdated, your perception narrows, your vision clouds, and opportunities pass by unseen. But when you surrender, your awareness sharpens. You notice invitations where before there was only noise. You recognize allies where before there were only strangers. Letting go shifts not just your outer circumstances, but the very lens through which you perceive reality. The right people and opportunities are not magically conjured from nothing. They are revealed, uncovered, illuminated by your willingness to clear away what does not belong. Think of life as a garden. If weeds are left to grow unchecked, they strangle the flowers, robbing them of sunlight and nourishment. But when you clear the weeds, the flowers thrive, and new seeds have space to take root. The people and opportunities that belong in your life are like those flowers. They cannot fully bloom until the weeds of old attachments are removed. The clearing may be laborious, even painful, but it is necessary. Only then can the garden of your life flourish in its true beauty. We must also recognize that the right people do not merely comfort us, they challenge us to grow. The opportunities that appear are not always easy paths, but they are paths that call us higher. The universe does not align us with mere convenience. It aligns us with meaning. The relationships that come after letting go often reflect back to us our own growth, our own readiness to live more authentically. The opportunities that arise test our courage, asking us to step fully into the life we have long desired but perhaps feared to claim. And so, when you find yourself in the midst of release, grieving, uncertain, unmoored, remember that the empty space is not barren. It is fertile, it is alive with potential. What is leaving your life is making room for what was always meant to enter. The friends who encourage your true self, the work that expresses your gifts, the partnerships that honor your soul, these are not accidents. They appear because you have allowed them to. The river carries you whether you resist or not. To cling is to exhaust yourself against the current. To release is to discover the current was always guiding you toward the place you were meant to go. The right people, the right opportunities, they are not found through desperate striving, but through surrender. When you let go, you allow the flow of life to carry you, and in that flow, everything you truly need awaits. So, when you decide to let go, the universe always responds in these ways. It creates space for what is truly meant for you. It speaks to you through signs and synchronicities. It begins the process of deep healing. It awakens the strength within you. It aligns you with people and opportunities that belong in your life. The truth is, the universe does not punish you for letting go. It rewards you. It opens its arms and whispers, "Finally, you are ready. Now I can give you what you deserve." So the question is, what are you still holding on to that is weighing you down? And more importantly, are you ready to let it go and allow the universe to respond?